When I first moved into a nursing home, I kept telling myself that it was temporary, that I would get better and go home. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized that leaving wasn't as simple as I thought. My home had changed, my body wasn't as strong, and the freedom I once had felt like a distant memory. No one really talks about how hard it is to go back once you've settled in. I wish I'd known before making the decision. If you're thinking about this for yourself or a loved one, there are a few things to consider. Here are 5 things I think you should know before you consider moving into a nursing home. I'll be sharing everything I learned, so subscribe and stay tuned for more. Number 5. Leaving the nursing home, harder than I thought. When I first entered the nursing home, I kept telling myself, this is only temporary. Once I feel better, I'll go back home. At first, I didn't see this as my final stop, just a place where I could rest, receive care, and talk to people my age. But things didn't turn out the way I imagined. As time passed, I gradually realized that my old home was no longer the familiar place I once knew. A year, 2 years, the longer I stayed away, the more distant it became. I used to think that once I returned, I could simply pick up where I left off, but reality was different. The house, left unattended, was now covered in dust, with broken furniture and things in need of repair. And I no longer had the strength to fix them. The neighbors I once knew had moved away, or they had their own lives to focus on. After being apart for so long, our connection wasn't the same anymore. But the biggest problem was my health. When I first arrived here, I could still walk, and I even believed that with regular exercise and proper care, I would regain my strength in no time. But that didn't happen. Over time, my body weakened. Less movement, fewer outings, I was becoming frailer by the day. Tasks that were once simple, like dressing myself or taking a shower, now required assistance. The pain in my joints was getting worse, and my memory wasn't as sharp as before. If I left this place, could I really take care of myself? I wasn't sure anymore. Then there was the issue of finances. When I was younger, I thought that as long as I saved enough money, I would have a comfortable retirement. But the cost of living, medical expenses, and medications kept rising. My savings were disappearing faster than I had expected. At first, I thought that if I left the nursing home, I could hire a caregiver. But looking at what was left of my money, I knew that wasn't an option. Staying here meant I had people to help me, doctors to check on me regularly. If I left, who would take care of me? Sometimes I sit alone in my room, wondering if moving into the nursing home was a mistake. If I had stayed at home from the beginning, maybe things would have been different. But no matter how much I think about it, I can't be certain that I would have managed on my own. A friend once told me, once you enter a nursing home, leaving isn't as easy as you think. Back then, I didn't believe it. I thought that if I ever wanted to go home, I could simply pack up and leave. But now I understand. Once you step into this place, the road back is not so simple. Old age is like a one-way journey. Once you've traveled too far, even if you want to go back, you can never truly return to where you started. I only wish I had thought more carefully before making this decision. Number 4. Losing privacy and dignity. A life I never expected. When I first moved into the nursing home, I thought I was just changing where I lived. I never realized I was also giving up something much greater: my privacy, my dignity, and my sense of self. At home, I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence if I wanted to, and do things on my own terms. But here, privacy is a luxury that no longer belongs to me. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, there is always someone watching, checking in, monitoring my every move. They mean well, of course. They want to make sure I'm safe, that I haven't fallen, that I'm taking my medication. But after a while, it starts to feel suffocating. Room checks happen at scheduled times, whether I like it or not. A knock on the door, then someone enters, sometimes waiting for my response, sometimes not. I no longer have the simple freedom of deciding when I want to be alone. Even the most private moments, getting dressed, bathing, using the restroom, often require assistance. I know they're just doing their jobs, but it's hard to accept that I now need permission for things I once did without thinking. I remember the first time I had to press the call button to ask for help getting to the bathroom. My hands hesitated over the button for a long time. I didn't want to be a burden, but I also knew I had no choice. When someone finally arrived, they were kind, but the feeling of humiliation stayed with me long after they had left. The way people talk to me has changed too. At home, I was treated like an adult, someone with experience and wisdom. Here, I am treated like a patient, a fragile person who needs to be managed, scheduled, and taken care of. People speak to me in soft, slow voices, as if I can't understand them. They decide what's best for me, often without asking for my opinion. And then there's the issue of sharing a room. I was lucky to get a roommate who was polite and kind, but not everyone has that luck. Some residents complain about sharing space with someone who snores loudly, talks to themselves, or suffers from dementia. Even if your roommate is decent, the fact remains, you no longer have a place that is truly your own. I used to think dignity was something that stayed with you no matter what. But now, I realize it's something that can be taken away little by little in the small, everyday moments. When someone enters your room without knocking, when you're told when to eat, when to sleep, and when to take your medication. When you have to explain yourself just to do something as simple as taking a shower. I never thought I would lose this much of myself by moving here. And if I had known just how much of my privacy and dignity I would have to surrender, I would have thought twice before making this decision. Number 3, losing the meaning of life, a silent struggle. Back when I lived at home, my days had a rhythm, a purpose, small things, but they mattered. I had my morning routine, wake up, stretch a little, brew my own coffee just the way I liked it, and sit by the window watching the world outside. I would water my plants, dust the shelves, maybe even take a short walk if the weather was nice. Those small tasks gave my day structure. They weren't just chores, they were moments of quiet joy, reminders that I was still in control of my life. Even something as simple as making a cup of tea felt satisfying, because it was my choice, my action. But here, in the nursing home, everything is done for me. My coffee is brought to me, already prepared. My bed is made before I even get the chance to straighten the sheets myself. Meals arrive at the same time every day, set down in front of me like I'm a child who can't be trusted to feed himself. At first, it seemed like a luxury, a chance to rest after years of taking care of myself and others. But over time, I started to feel something else, useless. Without anything to do, without anything to look forward to, the days stretch long and empty. I wake up, eat, sit in the same chair for hours, eat again, maybe talk to a few people, and then go to bed. And then the next day, I do it all over again. Some of the other residents used to be so full of life. One man, Mr. Harris, used to run a small business. He had stories, ideas, opinions. Now he just sits in the corner of the common room, staring at the television with empty eyes. Another woman, Mrs. Patel, was once an amazing cook. She used to make the most delicious homemade bread, something she was truly proud of. But here, there's no kitchen for her to bake in, no one to appreciate her skills. I see it happening to all of us. We stop doing, stop creating, stop caring. Slowly, we become people who just exist, not people who truly live. I never thought I would miss something as simple as washing a dish or sweeping the floor. But I do, because those little things made me feel like I was still part of the world, like I had a reason to get up in the morning. Now I find myself waiting for mealtime, waiting for visiting hours, waiting for bedtime. And sometimes I wonder if I'm just waiting for the end. If I had known that moving here would take away the small, simple joys that made life meaningful, I would have held on a little longer. I would have fought harder to stay in my home, to keep my independence, to keep living instead of just existing. Number 2, the feeling of being forgotten, a loneliness that grows. When I first arrived at the nursing home, my family visited often. My children, my grandchildren, they would come every weekend, sometimes even during the week. They brought flowers, fresh fruit, and photos of their latest adventures. They would sit beside me, telling me stories about work, school, and the little everyday things that I used to be part of. At that time, I told myself that this wouldn't be so bad. I still had my family. I was still connected to their lives. But as the weeks turned into months, the visits became less frequent. At first, they would call to say they couldn't make it. Work was too busy, the kids had school activities, something urgent had come up. "We'll come next weekend," they always promised, and I always believed them. But then, the calls themselves started to fade. I try not to let it bother me. I reminded myself that they had their own lives to live, responsibilities to take care of. I told myself that they still loved me, even if they couldn't always be here. But the silence in my room grew louder. The days grew longer. Holidays are the hardest. Birthdays, Christmas, New Year's. These were once times filled with laughter and warmth. Now, they're reminders of how alone I have become. Each holiday, I wait, hoping to see familiar faces walk through the door. Sometimes they do, but many times the plans change at the last minute. Something came up, they say, "We'll celebrate later." But later never comes. I watch as other residents sit by the windows, waiting like I do. We all put on brave faces, pretending that we don't mind spending another holiday alone. But the truth is, we do mind. It hurts. I used to be the center of my family. I was the one who hosted dinners, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, the one who held everything together. But now, I feel like an afterthought, someone they visit when it's convenient, someone they remember only when reminded. I don't blame them. Life moves forward, and I suppose this is just how things go. But that doesn't make it any easier. That doesn't make the loneliness any less real. I've stopped expecting too much now. It's easier that way. If they visit, it's a happy surprise. If they don't, well, I tell myself I didn't really expect them to. But deep down I do. I always do. Because no matter how old you are, no matter how much time has passed, you still want to feel like you matter. You still want to feel loved. You still want to feel like you haven't been forgotten. Number 1, losing my freedom, a life no longer my own. I used to live by my own rules. I woke up when I wanted, ate what I craved, and went outside whenever I felt like it. My days were my own, shaped by my choices, no matter how small they were. But now, in this place, every moment of my life is scheduled, decided by someone else. Breakfast is at 7 a.m. sharp, lunch at noon, dinner at 6 p.m. It doesn't matter if I'm not hungry yet or if I'd rather eat something else. This is the system, and I must follow it. At home, I could start my day with a cup of coffee on my balcony, watching the world wake up. Here, coffee is served in a paper cup, lukewarm and tasteless, just another part of the routine. They tell me when to sleep, when to wake up, when I can go outside. The doors are locked at certain hours. If I want to go for a walk beyond the garden, I need permission. If I want to visit a friend outside, I need to arrange it days in advance. Even the clothes I wear are subject to rules. They prefer us to dress in comfortable clothing, easy to put on, easy to take off. But what if I want to wear something nice? Something that reminds me of who I used to be? At first, I resisted. I insisted on doing things my way, but it quickly became exhausting. The nurses are kind, but they have a job to do. They don't have time to cater to individual preferences. They encourage us to adjust to the routine because it makes things easier for everyone. I know they mean well, but the more I comply, the less I feel like myself. I never thought I would lose my independence like this. Not all at once, but little by little, day by day. At home, I was in control. Here, I must ask for everything, from an extra blanket to a simple snack at night. I used to decide my own life, but now I must wait for others to decide it for me. I understand that this place is meant to provide care, to ensure that I am safe and well. But in doing so, it has taken away something I never truly appreciated until it was gone, my freedom. And with that, I fear I am also losing myself. I do not regret growing old. It is a privilege denied to many. but I do regret believing that a nursing home was the best choice for me. When I first came here, I thought I was choosing safety, care, and comfort. Instead, I found a life that is no longer my own. I have lost my freedom, my sense of purpose, and, in many ways, even my dignity. The daily routines, the rules, the feeling of being just another patient rather than a person. It wears you down in ways you cannot imagine. If I could turn back time, I would have explored every possible option before coming here. I would have asked for more help at home, found ways to stay independent for as long as possible. That is my advice to anyone considering this path. Think carefully. Once you enter, life is never the same again. Growing old is natural, but losing yourself in the process, that is something I was not prepared for.